welcome everyone to our first featured author chat for the 2023 Lamb Summer Reading Challenge. Before we hop into our chat with Jen, which I'm super excited about, I want to make 3 quick announcements for you guys. So our challenge is going strong. If you have any questions about what it is or how you can win prizes and what our 8 reading challenge categories are, you can head to joyerankatori.com/summer-reading. I'll put that link in the chat for you guys who are here, and you'll be able to see that on YouTube as well. You're going to find RSVP and replay links for events like these, direct links to our incredible authors, and a 28-page downloadable reading tracker and guidebook. So everything will be on that page. It's kind of our hub. The second thing is, if you haven't had a chance yet, head over to my Facebook page, which is also accessible from that one page that I told you, joyerankatori.com/summer-reading, and read and comment on our 4 posts so far this week. So basically what happens is each post that you comment on, you get 10 points. And those of you who are joining us live today get 20 points. If you're watching this replay and you comment on the YouTube video, you'll get 10 points. And then the thing about the points is the most points for participating this past week is going to win you an autographed copy of Blue Sky Gone by the fabulous J.S. Farmer, which leads me to number 3. I'm about to introduce you to Jen and ask her several questions about her book and writing. We hope that you've got some questions as well. So in a little bit, I'm going to open up to questions from those who are with us live. Feel free to either unmute yourself and just ask away, or you can put them in the chat as they come to your mind as we go through. So either way is great. Now, without further ado, I want to welcome J.S. Farmer, author of Blue Sky Gone, the 2022 Florida Indie Author Project award-winning book. Thank you so much for being with us, Jen.
Thank you for having me, Joy.
So get us started a little bit about your book. First, introduce yourself, and then tell us a little bit about this book.
Okay, so I am Jennifer Farmer, and I go by the pen name J.S. Farmer. My first debut novel is called Blue Sky Gone, so it is my first novel that I have written, and it is it's in the format of a historical fiction type book where I really delve into the tragedy of 9/11, but I build a fictional kind of storyline around the day of 9/11, where we meet 2 sisters who are very, very different, but they have an incredibly strong bond. And we kind of see their journey starting from a few weeks prior to 9/11. We do end up, moving into the day of 9/11 and sort of seeing how the day and the tragedy unfolds through the eyes of these 2 characters. And then we actually are able to follow along about 20 years later to the 20th anniversary. So we can see sort of how this event impacted their lives and some of the tragic things that happened. And then we see, at the 20th year post 9/11, what some of the issues we're still dealing with and some of the tragic things that are still happening, such as related illnesses and deaths and cancers and things like that. So, it is a very sad story, obviously, because of the subject matter and the event itself, but I do build in a great deal of hope and love and a lot of positive themes as well. And so the book does bring you on quite the emotional journey through many different emotions, as you know, if you've read the book. But it was very important to me to not only bring the details of the day and how tragic it was, but also how so many things did happen that were positive, how people came together. I hope you can hear me okay. There's a little bit of background noise here, and I apologize. But yes, I do also try to highlight some of the positive things that happen, relationships that were built, people that gave up their own lives or put themselves in great danger to help other people that day. So yeah, so it's a very emotional book, but it also is very book that sort of leaves you on a hopeful note.
I definitely agree with that. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and you are right. It is a very emotional read, but you definitely weave in that hope, and I love how you brought in all of the things that people are still dealing with today.
Yes.
We have a tendency, especially if you're not right there, you weren't super close to that day, we do tend to forget. So I love that you've done that in this book. So, what was the hardest part for you about writing this book?
I would definitely say the amount of research that I had to do, even though I lived through the 9/11 tragedy, and I lived in Connecticut at the time, so I was right there. Um, I was able to write in a lot of my own observations and personal experiences, but there was so much I didn't know about what actually happened and some of the things that went down, especially inside of the towers that day. The amount of research that I had to do to make sure that I was getting every detail right. This is the kind of thing that you can't mess up. You just can't underestimate, and you can't downplay any of the terrible things that happened. And the facts had to be correct. So the amount of research that I had to do, which also ended up being extremely emotionally difficult. There was times where I had to take weeks off at a time, sometimes days, or all the way up to several weeks. So it did take an emotional toll. I did have to build in those kind of mental breaks for myself because it was just so overwhelming at times.
Sense. So, since one of your main characters is a police recruit at the time that you were, can you share a tidbit or two from the book that's actually true to your life?
Oh, I that was one of the most fun parts for me, actually, of writing the book, is that Audrey, the character that is the police recruit, I was able to um, build in a lot of my experiences that were real from that time period. And so, a couple of the things, well, probably the biggest thing, is that I did get my nose broken by somebody in my police class. It was actually not the way I wrote it in the book. It was somebody completely different. But so I did have to sort of change it a little bit. But I did get my nose broken in the police academy. I did have to fight through that baton training to pass. The whole part about the shotgun training, that was true. Where I had to show up with the big swollen face, and my goggles didn't fit, and all of that. And in general, my experience in the police academy in the year 2001 as the only female, and that's the other thing that's true, is I was the only female police recruit in my academy class. So I did deal with some of those biases. Um, there was a lot of camaraderie amongst my fellow recruit officers, but there were some um, attitudes that were still just sort of like, it really wasn't fully accepted, believe it or not, even just 20, 21, 22 years ago, for a female officer to be coming on the job wasn't fully accepted. Not as much as you see today. Today it's much more common, it's much more accepted. So I did deal with some of those biases in the academy at that time.
Did you have a super close friend, like, and now I'm not going to remember his name, but he was wonderful and I totally fell in love with him?
Yes, Preston. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
I did. I actually did have a few very, very close friends. I would say that we were all very close in my academy class. But yeah, there was a couple that where I was most close with, and one of those officers actually was an officer in my department. So we ended up going to the same department from the academy, and there was a few others. Some I still very much keep in touch with today, even if it's just through social media. But yeah, you build a really strong bond when you go through something like that together. Our academy was incredibly long. It was a 7.5 month academy, so got to know them very well. And then, of course, kind of going through something like 9/11, here we were embarking on a new career, and we knew it was dangerous. Obviously, you don't enter this type of career without realizing that. But there was just something about watching 9/11 occur in front of our eyes as we were embarking on, and prior to even embarking on this career as a police officer. And it was just very sobering, and it was extremely it was just eye opening of what we were actually getting ourselves into.
That's, um, I can relate to that in a different way with something that happened with my field. But yeah, at that time of life, going through such a tragedy in that really affects your field, that's huge. Very,
Mhm.
very life altering.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so you have had actually a couple of careers in your life. What led you to even write this book? Is it something that you've always wanted to do?
Yeah, I've always loved writing. I've been writing since I could put a pen to paper. So some of my earliest writings were more poetry related and just kind of very, amateurish type of writing, because I was a child, and I just, but I loved it. I had a great love for writing, and if my mom were on here, she would tell you she kept all of my journals and my writing journals and all my poems and short stories. Um, and I think just over time, in life, you just get involved in careers and schooling, and just distracted from some of those things. I think that I got into my career, and I went from being a police officer. Yes, I've had several different careers. I started as a police officer and then went into government work and did that for quite some time, and then ended up being a stay-at-home mom, and I really enjoyed it. I really loved it, but that went by so fast, and I'm sure Debbie can attest to that, how quickly that time goes by. And before I knew it, my girls were both in school. And I'll just never forget that one fall in 2019. And I was just like, it was their first day of school. They went back, and I just kind of sat there in my house, and I said, what do I do now? Like, I don't know what to do with myself. And it was interesting because immediately it brought me back to writing. And I said, this is the time. This is something I always wanted to write a book. And I said, well, what else am I going to do with myself now? So I sat down and started writing.
That is so neat and so precious and wonderful that you had that time with your kids, and then decided to come back to this love that you
Yeah,
had. That is just wonderful.
finally.
Yay! I hear her. I hear her, but I don't see her.
Finally. Oh my God. Can you see me?
We can
We
hear you.
There you are.
finally. Holy God. I've been going around in circles.
I had the same trouble.
Oh, I'm so I've been most frustrating hour of my life.
I Yes, I understand.
Yes. So I'm so glad I finally got you. And it was through the email you sent me. So
Okay.
thank you very much, Joy. So that's how I got at it.
Yay. Yes, I'm so
Yay!
sorry. We have no idea what's going on, but we're
Oh,
all together now, and that's what
Yeah.
matters.
well, you know what? That makes it so much better because I figured it was my age. That's why I'm so dumb.
It was not you.
No.
Oh, good. Yay. Hi.
Hi.
Where'd you go? 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 Did I lose you?
No,
Hi.
no, we still see you.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to hit launch meeting. There we go. Okay. There's doing crazy things. Yeah. So hi, ladies. Hi, everybody.
Oh, hello.
So she has been answering so many questions, and I've just been loving this. So, let's see. Oh, that's what I was going to ask you next. So, what has been the most amazing experience for you because of this book?
Oh, there's been so many. I think the best way to start to answer that is that when I first, like I was just answering, and just kind of in a nutshell, I was just saying how, when I started as a police officer, went to government work, then I was a stay-at-home mom, and that's when the girls were in schools, when I sat down to write this book. So when I sat down to write the book, it was kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just going to write this. And I believed so much in the story. I knew exactly where I was kind of going with it, and I knew what I wanted to accomplish with it. And what I really wanted to do, my whole goal was to continue the conversation. People, making sure people don't forget as time went on. Because as you see with really anything, as time goes on, people tend to forget. It's not, necessarily something that's taught at great lengths at certain schools or in certain areas of the country even. I teach at the college level, and I hear so many different varying degrees of what the students come into my classroom knowing about 9/11. So it was really incredibly important for me to write this book in a historical fiction type of format, because not everybody would like to pick up a nonfiction version of a book, right? And especially with something like 9/11, or something really heavy like that, might be really hard for someone to read. So I wanted to reach that kind of base that would pick up a book that's more on the fictional side, but still learn about 9/11. And so I think, to answer your question, one of the most amazing things has been some of the younger readers who didn't know a whole lot about 9/11, reading the book and being like, I didn't know this or I didn't know that, and just learning about something that maybe they don't talk about or aren't taught a whole lot about. one of the most amazing things has been friends of mine who have had their children read the book after they read it and say, wow, this is really something that, in their middle grade years, maybe it's time for them to really start to learn about this. So when I first started writing the book, I thought that I would have a reader or two, the two that are currently on this live. And it's been incredible because it has reached so far and wide beyond my wildest dreams. So that has been a huge, it's just an amazing feeling, is that it's been so embraced that the word of mouth, the awards, the indie author project was huge. That was an amazing, just something that I didn't expect and has been so rewarding. But I would say the most rewarding of it all has been the people who I talk to that share with me where they were on 9/11, or share with me what their connection to 9/11 is. And I was so terrified, especially of the readers who have had somebody direct or have been directly affected by 9/11, maybe lost a loved one or several loved ones. I've spoken with many people who have lost more than one person in their lives. So to hear those readers really embrace the book and tell me things like it was healing for them, that it was cathartic, that it filled their hearts with hope, and even made them face it. Maybe a lot of people have had put it in a compartment away from their conscious mind, and um, it was time, especially at the 20th anniversary. So many people shared with me that it was time for them to face it and to really kind of work through those emotions. So that by far has been the most rewarding part of it.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
So now I think I know at least the first part of this question, or the answer. So are you writing something new? And what exactly is that, if you could tell us?
Yes, yes, I am writing something new. As as everyone has read the book here, I kind of leave Blue Sky Gone on a note of where it could continue, or it could be just left as it is, as the story ends. But I am writing something, and I my mom doesn't know how to mute the.
There.
There we go.
Oh,
I can't hear
oops.
her. I think
Oh,
she's still
sorry. Here.
there.
Sorry. I had muted you.
Okay, so oh yes, so I did just actually very, very recently in the past couple weeks sit down to start writing my next book. And as of right now, it is a follow through of the story of James. And I'm trying to kind of write it where you could read either or first, right? Or they could even be just standalone. But it will continue with the story of James. We will see where he goes. And as that last line of only the powers of the universe know the fate that James would face one day, it's going to be the theme of the next
Okay, I'll get my tissues ready.
book.
Definitely gonna need that.
Yes.
Oh, that's wonderful. All right, so I have just a few questions for you about reading in general, because
Okay.
this is a reading challenge. So, and of course, all writers begin as readers. So, do you have any special memories of summer reading as a kid?
I do. I I guess my earliest memories of being like so just immersed in reading was with the series The Babysitter's Club. That was when I
Yes.
really just started to fall in love with reading and got so into into that series. So much that it inspired me to start my own babysitters club at that time, and actually made a pretty decent amount of money for a young 12, 13-year old. But so that I would say that was like my first real, just got really into reading with that series. And then some of my favorite memories are reading at the Jersey Shore. We went every summer to the Jersey Shore, twice a summer, and it was always such a big deal. Like, what book am I going to get to bring? And what am I going to read? And that was always so exciting. And then I would always end up reading the book so quickly that we'd have to go to the Ben Franklin Five and Dime to go find another book. And it was like, it was always just so exciting. And by that time, I would say my reading choices had sort of progressed to like Dean Koontz. I was really into his books for quite some time. And yeah, so those are my, I'd say reading at the Jersey Shore is probably my favorite reading memory from when I was younger.
That's super cool. I'm gonna have to tell my daughter that. She'll think that's the coolest thing. So, is there something in particular that you're currently reading?
Well, well, I started my summer reading one of the best books that I've ever read called Any Good Thing by our lovely host here, Joy.
So
And
sweet.
I have to say, I highly recommend this book. It's called Any Good Thing. Please read it. It's one of those books and those stories that just stay with you. I connected with it so much. I connected with the characters. It was so beautifully written. I was just so impressed by it. I couldn't put it down, and I was sad when it was over. And I'm excited to continue reading the other books that you have written that carry on with the characters. I was very happy to see that because I got very, very connected and just attached to the characters. So that is how I started my summer reading, and that was an amazing choice for sure. And then after that, the last book that I read is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And that was it was interesting. It was a really fun book to read. I don't really read books like that. I'm much more into like historical fiction, and this was very, very much fiction, but it's also, I think, could be pretty accurate, right? It was a really interesting. Has anyone read it?
I haven't. I've been wanting to. It's on my list.
It's so good. Well, I won't say too much then, but it was another book where I was just like, oh, I can't wait to keep reading, and I wanted to see what happened. And it was a very, very interesting book. So I just finished that, and yeah. So now I got to delve back into my list of to read books.
That's awesome, and thank you so much. You're so sweet. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. That
I
that
did.
always thrills a writer's heart to hear that. So the last question for you before you can kind of share where people can find you, and then we're going to get to questions from our lovely audience. What authors and books actually inspire you as a writer? So are there certain ones that kind of inspired you in your own writing?
Definitely. I never really quite read historical fiction until I was older. And I think what really truly inspired me, especially to write a book like Blue Sky Gone in this type of format, is books by Kristen Hanna. When
Yes.
I read The Nightingale, I was so amazed by it because I learned so much about, that time period, stuff that I already knew as well was just so reiterated in the book. It was so factually correct, based on true horrific circumstances and events that actually happen. But then to have these fictional characters, it was kind of my first introduction to historical fiction, and I truly fell in love with that type of genre and that type of book. And I just love the way Kristen Hanna writes. I think she's got a beautiful writing style. So yeah, I would definitely say Kristen Hanna, historical fiction. That's probably my number one favorite thing and what inspires me the most.
I love her as well. All right, so where can people find you if you want to put your link in the chat and then also share it here on the air?
Okay. Yep. So I am on, I have my website, jsfarmerauthor.com, and I'm also on all of the social medias. I'm mostly on Facebook. That's where I do most of my postings. So that's JS Farmer Author. Also on Facebook. Instagram is probably where I post kind of most second to Facebook. So also JS Farmer Author. I'm also on TikTok. I don't do a whole lot on TikTok, but I do every once in a while put something on there. And then yep, my website. So those are the main places that you can find. I would definitely suggest Facebook because that's where I'm most active.
That sounds perfect. Now we get to our reader questions. So, and Debbie has a question in the chat for us. You had such memorable and likable characters in your book. Which is your favorite and why?
Oh, I love this question. Let's see. Let me put this up a little. Well, I love Travis. I would say that he's kind of my favorite as far as just loving him so much. Um, but I think Audrey was the most fun to write because she's definitely not me. So she's not I'm not writing her as me, which I get asked quite often just because we have such similar backgrounds. But I had so much fun writing her because I was able to incorporate so many of my own personal experiences, and sort of write those parallels, which I thought was just a ton of fun to kind of pull those memories, put them on paper, kind of make them sort of like never to be forgotten type of details that of things that I experienced and I lived. So that as far as writing the characters, I think Audrey is my favorite to write. But in the book itself, I think Travis was definitely my favorite.
So if you ladies have any other questions, feel free to just unmute yourself and ask them, or you can put them in the chat either way.
Is my mom still there?
Yes, I see
Oh,
her.
oh, I can't see
Here,
her.
let's see. Oh, hold on, you're
My-
still muted. Oh, it's still muted.
I hit unmute. Does
There,
that work?
there we go.
I had to have the right sequence. Yeah, Jen, I have to ask you. You have so many surprises in the book, and things that come out as you the stories, and then you slip this in and that, and then some of the surprises that come in. How did they come into your head? It was just some of the surprises were fast, and you never saw them coming. And it's just like, wow. So how? I mean, is it just something that came to you? Or, I mean, I'm just amazed at some of the, like, when that she's pregnant, and I mean, it's just, how did you, that was so amazing. It was so cool.
Some of the things I had sort of planned in the back of my head as I was writing, and then it just kind of flowed so naturally as I was writing. And some things I literally just thought of as I was typing. It
Wow.
just kind of came out of nowhere, and it just, um, I think any author can attest to the fact that when you're in your story and you're typing, you are transported, and it's almost like it's almost exhausting. I would get so mentally exhausted when I was done writing for the day because, and it would take me a little while to go from that world to back to reality, to my world. It was not an easy transition going from writing to just back to real life. So that was hard. So I think that when you get into that creative zone and you are so deep in that world, things just come to you. So things just popped into my head, and I was literally in this mode of creating, and stuff would just come to me that I hadn't thought of yet. And then there was other things that I sort of had. Oh, I want to incorporate this, or I want to incorporate that, or this is kind of where I want it to go that I already knew. So I was able to build on those things with some of the things that would just sort of like, oh, and I could go here, or I could do this. So really, a lot of it was just came out of nowhere and just came from being in that really deep creative mode.
That's awesome. Because it transformed us. We read it.
Oh, good. Well,
It
that
it
was
it, it, it was hard to go back into reality after reading some of it. I know I had that personal
yeah,
experience. Reading some of it, I was like so in the book. I was so in that for me to get back into the real, the real life, and being like, I felt like I was still in it. So
yeah.
it had the effect that you had creating it for me.
That's cool. That's cool to hear.
It was definitely, yes. So that's exciting that you are writing on something else.
Yes, yes, and I'm going to be sharing things, little snippets of it here and there to get some feedback. So I'm not 100% sure exactly, as far as like I same like thing with like Blue Sky Gone. I have an idea of where I'm going with this. I've already got some character development going. I know who my characters are. I know what the message is that I want to get across. So everything else will probably just come to me the way it did in Blue Sky Gone.
I have a lot of people that I have that ask me if you're working on another one. A lot of people, they all ask, the question is she working on another one? So I can now say, she is.
I am. And it did take a while. I mean, I think I was still just trying to figure out how to get Blue Sky Gone off the ground and market and just get that base established, that I wasn't even anywhere close to being mentally ready to write another one. And then I'm sure Joy can attest to this as well. It just happens. One day you wake up and you're like, I'm ready to write the next one. I'm ready.
That's the best. That's the best formula.
Yes.
So Debbie, did you have a question?
Yes, so I do. I have another question. So, someone can be a great storyteller, right? But like not necessarily a great writer, as you said before. As you're writing, you get in your head and you kind of go with things. So, how do you keep yourself focused so that you're not, when you're writing, that you can kind of keep the story on track? So I'm sure in your head it maybe kind of rambles as you're thinking your thoughts, but as you're writing it, how do you get to keep it kind of concise so that the story flows and doesn't ramble?
Yeah, because it is so easy for it to get away from you and for your mind to wander and you just start rambling, right? Because it's like you're trying to get so many thoughts down. So to avoid that, I do very kind of short bursts of writing. So I'll do maybe just a few pages at a time, and I'll have an idea of like I want to get this down on paper, and I will only write a few pages before I go back and reread it from the beginning. So either from the beginning or from like the chapter before. So I do a lot of rereading and then all the way through to like the last few pages that I wrote to make sure that it's all flowing and it's concise. And even then, you do a ton of editing. I mean, you take stuff out, like you just wipe out a whole page or a whole paragraph here and there, and then write in something. Or when you go back and you read and you realize, no, I didn't even explain how we got from point A to point B because it was in my head. I just assumed the reader. So rereading while I'm writing many times over and over again is so important. And I think that's how I keep myself on track and keep it concise without getting too far off track.
It's a
I
process.
also like to do dates. Like I like, and I know, Joy, you did this in Any Good Thing, and I thought this was so amazing. And when I read a book, I need that. I need to know where I'm at in time. I need shorter chapters. I need, in order for me to stay engaged and to know where I'm at in the story, it just helps so much to know what dates you're at. So when you put in a date, I feel like that just brings the reader, like keeps them even, on track with the story. But as a writer, I think that's equally as important. So that was the other thing, and I do the same thing, or I'm doing so far the same thing in this next book of letting everyone know where we are in the story, what dates we're at, and the progression, so that I don't get lost in the story, and so the reader stays on track too.
That's huge for
Yeah.
a reader like me who doesn't really like to read. I'm not really a reader because I'm too. So that was huge for me, and that was just this engrossed me by the way that you did that. And that to me was just like, I mean, it was just like it just like a magnet for me. So it really works for people like me that as a reader. So kudos.
Yes.
It does help.
I'm the same way as a reader, so I knew when I wrote the book that I would have to write it in that format.
Well, we
I was
are
about
right at the
to say the
40-minute
same.
mark, so I don't want it to like cut us off. So thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you, ladies, for joining us for
you.
this chat.
Thank you for
And
inviting us.
yes,
Being here.
definitely. Thank you for being patient too with our technical glitches.
Thank you for being
You
patient
all
with me.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I was panicking.
So was I.
Oh,
But it was wonderful. Thank you very much for the invite.
Thank you.
It's been a great forum. Absolutely wonderful. Very good. Thank you.
wonderful. Thank you all so much. This was wonderful, and I hope to see y'all again. And everybody go and check out the challenge, and definitely check out her book, Blue Sky Gone. You can see it right there.
Yeah.